So Grey Goo refers to the apocalyptic event where nanites pretty much replicate themselves and basically devour the world and leave behind a Grey Goo. Grey Goo itself is a core RTS. We're basically taking a venture with Petroglyph and Greybox and going about creating a RTS that's going back to the roots, where we really looked at the core pillars of RTS, which is base management, economic management, and strategic combat, and bringing those three things back into a balance as a result of what's happened over the last 2 decades of the RTS genre. So here you're looking at the beta HQ, and it's got pretty much 4 connection points for you to start customizing with. But we need to get our economy up and running, so we're going to go ahead and throw down a refinery here. Now, we really went about Grey Goo and said, hey, you know, we want this gameplay to be meaningful. We want player choices to be strategic, and every choice that you interact with the game should be something that is meaningful to the player. As a result, we redesigned the way the economics work for Grey Goo and not following any sort of like traditional sense. So in the sense that, you know, you start with your refinery, you place it down, you find this, you know, the resource patches, and they have different density levels. So, you know, you could try to put it here on the edge and maybe get 8 resources per second. But then maybe if you put a second one, you might get 16 out of that small patch. Or, you know what, I'm just going to take the easy way and say, here, there's the high density, I'll get 10. So I'll just go ahead and drop it there. At this point, your economy's set up, you're ready to rock and roll, and once that building is actually finished and constructed, it's going to automatically start the harvesters and create the supply line for you that you get to interact with. So all the economic gameplay of having harvesters, of being able to raid that or take out your opponent's economy is there. So you could either do a light raid and just hit him for a small amount by taking the harvester line, or you maybe go for the extractor and just say, hey, you know what? We're going to blow this sucker up and bring your economy down like in a medium impact way. Or do you go for the throat, where you don't just hit his current economic status, but also his futures, and just rip that down? Now, there's different degrees of gameplay that come with this, in the sense of, you know, the refineries are probably very, very well protected. The harvesters, they're traveling across the map. They're probably something very much easy to do a hit and raid on. And while the extractors are that middle ground for in between it. The other thing we did for Grey Goo is we said, hey, we want to be able to take unit production and make it meaningful for the player as well. So factories, as they exist in for Grey Goo, are all about production volume. They create a volume of units that you're actually able to produce, not necessarily the diversity. For the betas, their base building goes into a very unique state of gameplay for them, where this is where the customization comes in and the modularity. Here's the factory, you know, it's building out, and once it's completed, it's going to give you the option for producing these 2 initial units. Now, that's all great and dandy, but when you're looking at what you have left on this structure, you have two more connections. The player's faced with gameplay choices. Do I want to throw another factory in here and increase the production volume, or do I want to actually increase my diversity by saying, hey, I want to build Predator tanks, so I'll need this tech. For now, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, here's the Predator tanks, and we're going to go ahead and attach a tech building here to actually accessorize our factory so it's able to do it. Now we have this really interesting gameplay choice for the player. What do I want to do with that last spot? Is it more important for me to increase my production volume and drop another factory, or is it more important for me to increase the diversity? These are the choices we wanted people to think about when they're base building. How do you build your base and let it be customizable for you? So for right now, we're going to go ahead and throw down another factory and increase our volume. So this tech, once it's done, is actually going to convey its benefits to both of these factories and increase the production. Now, with all this customization that goes along with it, you're probably thinking, hey, how do I manage all of this? Do I have to remember which factory is configured to what? We went ahead and said, hey, there's this new way for you to actually interact and streamline it. You can micromanage each individual factory if you want, but through the hotkey system we developed into Grey Goo, you're actually able to go ahead and say, hey, one key press, here's what I got, and now choose the subunit of what I actually want. And the game is going to go and find what factory is best for that to actually be built at. Here you can see that this factory is actually queued up with our Stalker and our Commando, and it actually said that third Predator is actually being built over here, and now those units are going to come out. Now for the betas, they're all about this modularity, and then they can also decide whether they want to build really close together or start distributing across the map. So if we go for a quick stroll over here with our Commando unit, one of our base infantry, we might decide, hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and start expanding out this direction. You could be dropping a power power hub out here in the wilderness and say, this is where I want to start a build. You could proxy, you can build small outposts, decide where you want to build them across the map, and just kind of customize them. The power hubs come in like 3 different sizes. They come in a small, which has 2 connections, a medium, which has 4, and a large, which has 6. And that kind of covers the whole of what the beta faction does for their base building. So there's a lot of modularity and customization with it. Here we're going to show you an example of how the humans work. Remember, the betas were all about the modularity and customization, and then being that middle of the road that you can build distributed bases or not. The humans are actually all about building one giant fortress that they actually interact with. That fortress is all about this central power core, where you see this big power core that's generating everything in a central computer that powers everything. Now, we're going to go ahead and start our economy up and running, but the economy system for the humans is very similar but very different in far as the challenges that it presents to a player. So while it's the same refinery, extractor, and harvesters running back and forth, it's still about, well, where do I need this for it? I'm going to have a base that's a big base. Do I really want to start with the resources that are closest to my base, or do I want to start further away? For now, we're just going to start with something close by and get the base building here. So the base itself is actually built around the idea that everything needs to be connected together. You're almost playing a small game of Tetris of organizing and figuring out your base layout. So here we're going to go ahead and start the factory up and running and get it going so we have our unit production. Here you can see the harvesters coming. Now, the human harvesters are also very different from what the betas are in the terms of they're a little bit smaller, they're a lot faster, and they carry a smaller load. So when their lines are rated, it doesn't necessarily have as strong of an impact to them as it would to a beta player, since they are so very much dependent on where they're able to build them. Alright. I'm back over here. So here's the human factory, and we're going to get started building this base here. And as you can see, it's a similar thing where you get your 2 base units, and then there's all the additional text to be built onto it. For the humans themselves, you're actually going to take those base buildings and actually attach them directly to the structure so that it gets that benefit. This is where that puzzle building actually really comes into play, where you're saying, hey, how do I best maximize this layout? Here's this tech building, it's being conveyed to this factory. Well, it's only got one other connection point to give its tech to. So we'll just go ahead and drop another tech building, or another factory, right here at the end of it. And now once this is done, this factory will get that same bonus. But now it's been isolated off, so only those 2 work. Now, while that gives us the access to all these tank units, we're going to want to expand what we can do here. We have our howitzers, which are our artillery units, as well as our lancers, which are some of our siege. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and start building some of our siege units. So here you can see the factory under production, and you can see that it actually has the tank tech available, and so those tank units are be able to produce. We'll go ahead and start queuing that. Now, one of the features we really looked at as well, and we didn't quite cover this in the beta, but here in the humans you can definitely see it, is that we allow the units to be auto-queued in. So you don't necessarily have to manage what you're producing out of a factory if you know what the staple is that you want out of it. So for example, right now, this human tank is being auto-built. So when this is done, it's going to go to the X of the queue. Now, I may want, let's say, a revolver in here as well. Once this human tank is done, the revolver will advance forward. But you know what, let's go ahead and put a trident in here too. These are things like, hey, I may just need 1 or 2 of these units, but I still want my tanks being my main staple. So we'll have this factory just constantly producing out. And here you can see how it just shifted the line. You also have the ability to say, well, you know what, this is more higher priority, and you can shuffle the line around if you want. This exists for both the humans and the betas, but it's just that functionality that if you want to micro it, you can. Do you have to? No. So we're going to go ahead and queue one of our siege units since that tech finished, and we're going to go ahead and build this guy to the front of the line.
Unit ready.
And there he goes. Now here you can see 2 of our human units, basically our tank, which is right, the Gladius over here, and then our revolver, which is our heavy infantry, as well as our trident, which is kind of a light infantry unit for the humans. In addition to all to the unit designs that we did, we really wanted to take the unit designs and say, we want to give you very simple tools that you can use n number of ways, so that there are no activated abilities on the units. They're just all units that have a very specific function that they work with, and how you want to use it is the strategy and how you interact with it. In addition to all of that, we did say, hey, we want to be able to allow you to change the role on some of these units. So for example, when this Lancer comes out, he's going to come out with a beam that he can actually go and just blow up other units with. that's kind of like this beam that's going to really be good against structures that cores into it and just like burns it down. But that may not be what you necessarily need it for. You might have structure control as far as destroying your enemy. No problem. What you need him to do is really give you some oomph and some punch. You can actually change what he actually does as far as his role through our tech upgrade system. So each of the different tech types has a different tech upgrade. For now, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, here we're going to change our Lancer. Instead of having that coring beam that he normally has, we're going to get ahead and give him a railgun shot. Alright.
Hello, Commander.
Now, as you can see, this is starting out, but we need some base defenses. So we're going to go ahead and add in a turret here to give us some defense. So we'll go ahead and toss one over here and toss another one on this side.
Beginning construction.
Now, this might be a great layout for our early game. We might be, we got everything concentrated here together. We're holding off the enemy pretty well. We got some units built that will definitely work towards that advantage. But we're ready to push out. The humans basically have these other buildings that we call conduits. It's like laying down a very long extension cable. We can take it and extend it out. So once it's actually done building, you can start building off of the end of it and creating almost redundancy to your systems. But like I was saying, this works great. Once we're expanding out, we're starting to build over here. We've pushed and expanded our base area. These turrets may not do us any good anymore right up here. So we're going to take the opportunity that we're going to let you teleport these buildings around. The humans are the masters of teleportation. And as such, they can actually reconfigure their base into a format they want. So here we can say, hey, that turret doesn't work there anymore. We're going to move it over here. This gives the player the ability to really customize that big fortress he's doing for the stage of the game he's in. Early on, it might be really tight and compact. Late game, you might be starting to push out, and you're going to want to reconfigure it to get the best efficiency out of it. Now, there's one more unit type that exists for Grey Goo that we really haven't kind of covered yet that I really wanted to show everybody. And that is the Epic class units. For it, the humans are going to need to build a large factory, and they're actually going to have to create all the technologies and directly attach it to this large factory to gain access to these Epic units. The Epic units represent everything that a human commander would want to actually bring into the battle, and actually what he wants to say, hey, this represents me as to what I'm going to actually do. So here we go. The factory's got a few seconds here to build, unfortunately. Well, while that's going on there, I'm going to go ahead and take a tour around the map and show you guys some of the cool terrain that we're actually doing. So we'll take this force over here. We're going to go start exploring. Now, you saw originally the resource layouts and how they were kind of laid out on the map for the starting areas. But that's not the way they actually exist in the world. So here, turning on the resource layout so you can actually see them, you can see how there's different densities and different shapes for all of the specific resource fields. This really gives you that economic interaction with the map that changes the way it is. You don't necessarily just go to one spot as to where you're going to get your resources. You need to go to necessarily many. As a result, maybe we're ready to go ahead and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and expand out our economy here once that's done building. And let's see here. Alright, so that guy's just about done.
Large factory complete.
Alright, so now all these techs are building, and you can see here's the base units going with him, and you can see what techs we've already unlocked.
Lancer ready.
Group in motion.
So sorry for that slight digression, but alright, so going around the map again, kind of talking more about the terrain that we have. You can see here that we have some of this forest. Well, the forest is actually very tactically and strategically significant on the map. The cool thing about it is that forests are all about hiding units and having that advantage of being taking a larger force on from a very defended position. You might have a few Marines that might be, in modern day, that are sitting in a tree line, fighting in a jungle, shooting at other soldiers that are attacking them. We wanted to take that exact experience and give you the ability to play with it in a wartime game. So with the forest, we do exactly that. Anybody who's inside the forest can actually shoot out. People who are shooting into it can't see who's in there, so they can't actually target in there. And additionally, this actually provides your ground units cover from any aircraft that are actually flying over it. Alright, now we wanted to show you exactly what the epics are look like. So here's actually the human epic for the human faction. It's this giant battle robot that has the human inside of it that he actually marches across around on the field. He's equipped with a very big energy field that when it overloads, it actually will explode outwards and push enemy units away from him.
Moving there. En route. In time.
Here you can see some of the enemies actually taking fire at it as we get closer to it.
We decide the outcome of this conflict. Got it. We
Oh,
control this
took a little too
system.
much damage there.
Received. Coordinates received. On my way. Moving
In addition to all of that,
This
he's
ends
actually got
now.
this big energy beam that can just cut through an enemy army.
Alpha here.
Every faction has an epic, and we're really excited to see what gameplay this brings and actually impacts onto a base when you bring it over and just bring that destruction to bear. So our release plans are actually to have the game released on Steam. We're set up to do an open alpha, a closed alpha here really shortly after PAX. They'll go to a closed beta and an open beta, and then we're planning to release the game on Steam this fall in 2014.